Hi guys, Kim here with Crafty Kim's Creations, and welcome back to my channel. Today I have for you a Look for Less challenge hosted by Yami, the Latina next door, and her host for the month is Jelena at Blondie Next Door. Make sure you check out both of their channels as well. I will have those linked down in the description box, and I hope you enjoy the video. So for the first DIY, I'm putting my own spin on this plaque I found at Kirkland's for $60, and I made mine for around $7. The products all from Dollar Tree are this sink mat, a smaller wreath form, a piece of foam board, some popsicle sticks, and some burlap ribbon. And the product I used from Walmart are these boxwood stems, and I used 2 bunches at 97 cents a piece. So I suppose you could use the sink mat as is, but I wanted to make the squares bigger to represent my inspiration piece a little bit more. So I'm just cutting out square sections using my utility knife, and it was really easy to do. Now I'm taking the mat outside to give it a coat of the metallic spray paint in the color aluminum. I love this spray paint for doing faux galvanized looks. And I'm taking Waverly chalk paint in the color steel and going all over it with a sponge. And then I'm taking the color silver lining and doing the same thing. This is how I do all of my galvanized looks, and my other videos will explain what paints to use and how to do it. Now moving on to the poster board, I'm going to cut out the frame for the sign. So I'm cutting out 2 12-inch pieces and then 2 10.5-inch pieces. So that way we can meet them together to make a frame. So I saw this woman named Sarah Edens on Facebook, and she now has a Facebook page and a YouTube channel called The Peppermint Cactus, and she makes faux wood out of foam board. So she just uses her nail, like I'm doing here, to make the knots what would be the knots in the wood. And then I use my little sewing needle, which is plastic, just to poke some holes as like nail holes to make it look more realistic. You should definitely check out her channel. She's amazing. And this is my first time trying her technique. Well, I mean, who knows if it's her technique per se, but she's the one that I saw do it, and she's amazing with all the different projects she does. So now I'm just taking my antique wax by Waverly and getting the color down into the grooves that I just created. That way it, soaks up more color into each groove that I made. Once you've done that, you can just use the sponge to kind of blend out the colors. I don't really add too much color to the sponge. I just use what's already on the foam board and then gradually add a little bit more here and there. And this sponge is just the bath sponge that you can find at the Dollar Tree, cut into some pieces, and it works really well for this technique. Again, I learned this from Sarah Edens at the Peppermint Cactus. Then just holding all the pieces together to do the edging, I'm just taking the sponge with some more of that antique wax and going over all the edges. And it does bleed through a little bit, so now I'm just kind of blending that out again on the front of my planks. Now I'm just taking a old paintbrush, like a chippy brush, and some ink by Waverly, and I'm dry brushing that over each board to kind of make it look more like wood and give it some little grain effect. And when it goes over the knots, it makes them a little darker as well. And then just using my sponge, I'm blending it in. Now to make the sink mat a little more sturdy, I'm just using some hot glue and putting some of those popsicle sticks on the back. And this is to help straighten it out and make it a little more strong for when we add our faux wood planks for the frame. I found it easier to put the planks down first and then just kind of lift up on it, add the glue and press down, and that way I knew exactly where I wanted my pieces to be. After I applied all the foam pieces, I realized I wanted it to be just a little more sturdy, so I just cut up some pieces of popsicle sticks and hot glued those onto the back. Now it's time to work on the wreath, and even though this is one of the smaller wreath forms, it was still too big for me, so I cut off the outer ring and just used the 2 inner circles. To make it easier to stick the stem of the boxwood in the wreath, I just took some of this burlap ribbon and wrapped it around and then just used hot glue to secure it at the end. Now just using some wire cutters, I'm cutting all of the bunches off of the boxwood, and then I can just stick them into the flaps of the ribbon. I'm personally not quite ready for fall decorations yet, but everyone's doing DIYs now because of the time, to get it done before fall actually happens. So I picked up these pumpkins from the Dollar Tree, and I just kind of used the little wire piece that they come with to stick them into the ribbon. So the nice thing about that is this wreath can be used year round, and you can just change it out for each season. And please excuse my bow making skills. I am horrible at making bows. I need to practice so much because this is terrible, but I did the best I could and it turned out okay in my book. So basically I just pinched the middle and then twisted it and then made another loop, twisted it, made another loop, twisted it, and I have 2 tails. So it's just a very simple bow. I used some of this wire that you find in like the car section at the Dollar Tree, but you could use like a pipe cleaner or whatever. And I stuck it through the loop of the middle of the bow and the rest of the pieces and then twisted it on the back. And that's what I used to attach it to the frame as well. So here I just put the bow on the front of the wreath and stuck those black wires through the back and twisted it onto the sink mat. Now using that same wire, I'm twisting it around my sewing needle to make little ends so that the hot glue has something better to adhere to make a hanger for the back of the frame. And here it is all finished. And even though it's not exactly the same, it was my inspiration and I feel like it turned out pretty good. My wreath is definitely bigger than the inspiration piece from Kirkland's, but I really love how it looks and I love how I can use this year round and change out the wreath to match the seasons. I didn't have too many things for fall yet, so if you wanted, you could add some berries with the pumpkins or some leaves or some more flowers or something to make it even more colorful. And now onto DIY number 2. I'm sure you're going to be seeing lots of these pumpkins remade from the one at Kirkland's for $36.99. I did mine for around $6 and I like how mine turned out. I've already seen a couple different ways to do this, but hopefully you enjoy mine as well. Everything is pretty much from Dollar Tree for this DIY. I picked up this Thankful and Blessed pumpkin, these metal words that I actually got last year, but they do have them again this year. I did use these beads from Amazon, but you can certainly use the wood beads from Dollar Tree, no problem. And then again, the rest of it is from Dollar Tree, this contact paper, the floral wire, and then the ribbon. So to start, I'm putting the side of the pumpkin I want to cover and tracing the shape of it onto the contact paper and then just cutting that out. And I should mention that I did sand all of the glitter off of the front of the sign. The contact paper is already sticky, but I wanted it to have a really good hold, so I'm just using a glue stick and adding a layer of glue and then putting the contact paper over that. Then just using a piece of sandpaper, or you could use a sand block from Dollar Tree. I'm just sanding off the edges to get any of the excess pieces of contact paper off and also rough it up a little bit. Then with my white by Waverly chalk paint, I'm just giving it a coat of this and then I take it outside and sand that down. Now just using this brush I actually got from Dollar Tree, I'm dry brushing the color Parisian Gray by Folk Art Home Decor chalk paint and just going over that. Then just using a sponge and my antique wax, I go over the stem. I lined up my beads to see how many I would need, and I ended up using 56 beads for the middle circle and 33 for the right and left side. I ran out of white spray paint, and so I had to do these all by hand with a foam brush. I do recommend using spray paint because this kind of took forever, but it was definitely worth making them white. I used my white by Waverly for this. And then just using my floral wire, I put the beads onto that to create my circle and then just connected the ends. And to add the side pieces, I connected the wire to the middle circle. Hopefully by watching, you'll get what I mean. So because we used floral wire, it's able to kind of move around a little bit easier. You can kind of bend it and mold it to where you want it to be. So I just trim off the excess pieces of wire, and then I'm going to use my hot glue to glue down certain beads to keep it in place. You don't have to glue all of them, which is nice because they're all connected. So you just find where you want to start and then kind of shape it in the way you want before you glue the next bead down. So taking the leaf that came with the sign, I'm just taking my antique wax with a sponge and going around the edging to give it a more rustic look. And I had another leaf from a different sign that I also used, and then this welcome sign from those metal words, and I'm just doing the same thing on that. And then I'm just going to take my antique wax and go around the edging of the pumpkin just to make it look a little more distressed. Then just using a little bit of hot glue to adhere the word to the front of the pumpkin. And here we are again with my not so fabulous bow making skills, where I just pinch the middle and then create 2 hoops on each side and 2 tails for a simple bow. And now to attach the bow, I'm just adding some hot glue directly to the pumpkin, and then I will put the bow on first, and then I'm going to take my leaves and add them to the front of the bow to make it look like it's part of the pumpkin stem. I wanted it to have these little like squiggly vine things coming down from it. So using my floral wire, I just wrap it around my pen and then take that and stick it into the wire I used to tie my bow and just wrap it around itself, and it stays in nice and snug. Then just using some floral wire, I re-poked the original holes that were in the sign and took the jute string that came with the sign and just put it back on. And here it is all finished. I am just all about the natural colors and warm tones, and I just love how this looks on my front door. You could certainly paint the welcome sign orange like the inspiration piece, or do it any color that fits your decor. I really enjoyed both of these projects, and I hope you guys enjoyed them as well. Remember to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell for future videos. Hope you have a great day.